Hey guys, welcome back to Tech Insights with Dylan White. It's day two. All right, so consistently getting a good start. One thing about today that I want to remind people, I kind of briefly talked about it yesterday. Any video I do over the next, we're going to call it the month of June, so the next 27 days. I'll start every video off with just a little bit about like some struggles, and then dive into just some basics. A lot yesterday, I kind of talked a bit about imposter syndrome, but then I also talked about helping to secure your Microsoft 365 tenant. So today we're going to talk a bit about imposter syndrome, what it is, how it affects even the biggest, brightest minds of the world. Then we're going to dive into 4 or 5 minutes just around the M365. I want to keep things brief, 10 minutes. So let's get to it. Imposter syndrome, what it means for me, the definitions in my world, right, and what I think it does, and how it makes me just afraid. Right? Afraid whether it's to go a step further, but afraid to look retrospectively or introspectively on myself. Um, some of those ways, right, is I freeze. Right? I decide to do nothing. Right? I'm like, am I really the guy to talk about this? Am I really the guy that knows enough to talk about, to have something to say, to have words to put to certain things? Like, am I important enough? Will people listen? Even when people say, hey, what you talked about X day helped me put something on paper or put an idea out and actually make some changes, giving you 30 minutes of your time helped me last, right? When I was doing those things. And I think when I was able to give people back time, even if it was for my own time, right? Not necessarily just somebody in my network, but it was actual time. It was actually meaningful connection. That's why I found the most value um, just in myself, right? I love giving back. So it's something I'm trying to get more of. But from my perspective, the 12 years now I've spent between both the military and the private sector of IT, I've learned a lot, not only how IT works, but how IT works at the biggest of organizations, um, and specifically around Microsoft, right? And I think that allows me just a different narrative to provide to you guys as you're trying to build your own selves and your own careers and help organizations adopt those same systems. Right? Microsoft's one of the biggest systems creators in the world, right? Whether it's dataverses, whether it's cloud platforms, whether it's security, they're everywhere. Um, so that's why I backed myself with Microsoft technology. Um, so imposter syndrome, all of us face it. It freezes all of us. It freezes even the brightest of minds. But for me, it has helped kind of create that narrative that sometimes, why am I doing this? Why am I being consistent? Why should I keep being consistent? um, and sometimes I just like talking, like getting an outlet. So I'm gonna keep doing it. So I appreciate all of you guys and all the positive, even the negative, right? All the mic audios. I try to put music in the background. I appreciate every single context. I mean, at least you listen. um, so there'll be no more music, none of that, but there will be videos like this where we dive into certain things and we dive into some studies. So today we're going to dive into one of the coolest aspects of Microsoft security from a partner ecosystem. It's not just partners, it's open on the wide web. So any organization can actually look at this. I'd show every customer this, and I hope everybody listens. So we're going to walk through what's known as the Microsoft Security Academy. We're going to walk through Microsoft Secure Score. So let's get to it. All right, guys, let's dive into what is the Microsoft Security Academy. This is, what I believe, what Microsoft's one of their best contributions to the partner ecosystem. It's called a partner resource, but it's completely wide open. It's on GitHub. Microsoft has tons and tons of resources that they host on different versions of their GitHubs. And I'll start going through some of those every day. But today I wanted, again, to make it very brief, right? Keep it in kind of the 10-minute realm. And we're going to dive into the Microsoft Security Academy, what it is, why I think it's important. And also, we're going to start diving into a little bit around Microsoft Secure Score for my demo tenants. So, Security Academy is a landing page of resources that Microsoft provides to organizations, but also specifically for partners to help organizations, right? So in here, you'll see modules, right? And that's what Microsoft calls each, we'll call it platform within their security ecosystem, right? So you have Microsoft Sentinel, which is your SIEM tool, Defender XDR, Defender for Cloud, which for all of you that heard of Wiz, right? That's their pet product. Microsoft Entra, for those that have heard of Okta, Microsoft Purview for those that heard of their own is Azure Network Security, so for cloud networking, etc. They have ways to get started, different certifications, specializations for partners, programs for partners, Security Copilot, which is their AI questions and answers around Security Copilot, the Secure Future Initiative, which is something Microsoft, I'll say, quintupled down on. They've been very bold in saying how much they're investing in security the last, we'll call it 6, 7 years. But last year, they made an even deeper initiative saying that security first and security layered into every product from the beginning of the product. And then Microsoft Sentinel resources. They update this just about every 2 months, sometimes every month. Right, so the last update, they always put that at the very top of the page. So the last update was April 25th. What those are, so they always have events, programs, back to the basic series, which we'll go through. I think that'd be a very good way to go through. But then just standard documents, right? Fishers found a sneaky way for emails to look like they're being spoofed, right? John Savile's breakdown on model context protocols and AI, new guidance to avoid OAuth misconfigurations, secure AI red teaming, right? So you can generate your own attacks, MSSP stuff for those research from other vendors that they're partnering with, right? The critical vulnerability exposure, right? They're talking about how that works, all kinds. Licensing with M365 maps, best maps resource ever. We'll have a whole series on that. I can walk through that at great length. What agents in AI are, all kinds of things about authentication, how it works, um, the research around it, and new certification updates, new ideas for zero trust, what their deployment kits look like, and then a lot of different news from Microsoft Sentinel because they're introducing a new way for all their different connectors to actually be deployed and managed from partners. And then they have a partner kit around zero trust. I have a couple of friends in the community who love that partner word of zero trust. And I have my own definitions of it, even though the CISSP is really good for those of you that are looking into that. And then they go into the different events page, right, where you can learn. All these are different webinars, right? I'm not going to go into it in depth, but one thing I think is very cool, start your journey understanding it. Again, what is M365 Maps? Getting started. Basic cyber hygiene prevents 98% of attacks. As somebody that works with a SOC every day, works with insider response, insider risk, and then incident response almost every day, I will tell you that having MFA on your end users and identity is the one thing that every organization should do. If you haven't started there, please return back. Right? If we're in a flow chart, if you haven't done basic cyber hygiene, please return back. Right? And then diving into incident response, and then the secure cloud business applications project, otherwise known as SCUBA. For those that work with government workers, it's very important there, but also has lots of reporting, um, just all kinds of cool things in that aspect. And then they have all the different blogs for each of those modules. They have Ninja training, which dives into each at different depths, dozens of different links, all with awesome things. Then they have their reference architecture, which we could spend an hour on. It's updated by a wonderful person in the community, posts all kinds of content on what I used to call Twitter, known as X. His name is Mark Simos and their team, and they go into great detail about what that is. And so we'll have a whole talk around that. So that is the Microsoft Security Academy in a nutshell. Right? We'll dive into each of the pages at greater length as I kind of talk through pieces. Today, I wanted to make all about how we secure, right, the basics of M365 tenant. So we'll walk through what that looks like from a get started in the basic cyber hygiene. Right. So if we're to get started, right, with the content, right, have you looked at Microsoft Security 101? I had a series on that. Um, have you talked about what the shared responsibility models are, the AI shared responsibility model, zero trust, incident response, all the things, right? Microsoft has all these things, right? Then they have different cookbooks for each, right? And we can go into those. Again, zero trust architecture, right? Do you have a strategy, right? Define the strategy. What is certain things? All kinds of different aspects of just where to start your journey in each of the different roles. If you haven't seen that before, I'll put a link to that as well. Let's just take a look at what Microsoft thinks of basic cyber hygiene. Okay, it's important to see how people are looking at this. This is from 2 years ago now, but I think it's still super relevant, right? So basic hygiene can still protect you against 98% of attacks, right? Require phishing resistant MFA, right? So that means some type of biometric, some type of hardware key, phishing resistant MFA. Apply zero trust principles, right? Doesn't necessarily mean a zero trust product, right? Principles, right? So least privilege access, apply security boundaries, right? And apply modern anti-malware, right? All these things. Microsoft actually labels them down to the T of what you should do from just a quick brief checklist, right? When I go through with customers, I start talking about other users and talk to security administrators, right? And I just say, hey, providing just actual value, right? Have you enabled MFA, right? Opt for things with minimal friction, right? Like Windows Hello for Business or YubiKey, right? With for 502 compliance. Apply principles, right? Verify every single transaction, asserting the least privilege, but rely on intelligence, right? Correlated alerts and user entity behavior, right? Using modern anti-malware, right? Use an XDR solution. Use Microsoft's, very cool, very awesome. If you use a third party, make sure you're doing SIM ingestion. Make sure you're adding extra layers. Make sure you are actually bringing the telemetry in and looking at it. Keep things up to date. I couldn't say enough about that. Update and patch your systems, please, but have a plan around it, right? And then protecting your data. Do you know where your data is? Do you know who's using your data? How they're using your data? Addressing the different risks of individuals and the training around that. And then ensure the proper access, again, least privilege access as much as possible. Okay? So now let's dive into a tenant. Right? So this is one of my demo tenants. Let's talk a bit about it. Right? So we're on the Microsoft Defender homepage. We're walking through a bit around what it is. I know a little bit of it's cut off, but we're going to scroll. Right? So this is what the homepage for Microsoft Defender looks like. Right? So we're going to scroll down and we're going to go to this little known thing under Exposure Management, Microsoft Secure Score. Right? So people talk about this. They talk about how sometimes it's gamified, sometimes it's oversimplified. I have lots of feels about it. I can't sum it up in the next 2 minutes. We're going to dive into it probably a greater session, how we can take the recommendations. But basically, what it is Microsoft comparing your M365 tenant based on what your organization says it does and the different security layers that you said you've completed and they can see that you've completed. Right? I take that with a grain of salt in the fact that you could have a DLP system, but you could not have your machine registered to that DLP system. So Microsoft doesn't know about it. You could be using a Varonis or a Fortra in Microsoft. You haven't, registered your end users to use that, so Microsoft can't see that telemetry, right? A lot of other third-party vendors now work with Microsoft, so you can use Purview with Varonis with a Fortra, right? So this tenant, again, 46.7%. We wouldn't call that good, right? What I want to see most customers at is 80% or above. If it's below that, how can we get you above there? Or maybe we're not registering, right? Let's have a conversation around it, right? As you can see, we recorded 460 points out of 980. You can see where those points come from. When it's stale, has there been something that's digressed over the last? We could try to see configuration and audit trail, right? So the last little bit, I want to say this is a very easy place for security administrators to just come in. You can see recommended actions, history, metrics, and trends, right? So if I just look quickly around what an action is, right? To block credential stealing. It walks through. You can sort it by how much it'll help you increase your score. Right? You can see it again with history. Right? What's our history been over a certain amount of period of time? Right? So it just allows you for quick access to see your overall health and security of your tenant. Right? So that being said, hopefully you guys have understood a little bit more. If you guys have never heard of Secure Score, reach out. I'd love to walk you through it. If you guys have questions around is it valid, right, with the data, or how can I manage the recommendations? I'd love to talk more about it. Exposure management, as you see at the top, that's Microsoft's new way of seeing how vulnerable your tenant is across different platforms, different vulnerability ecosystems. If you guys would like to know more about that, I'd love to talk about it. With all that being said, just really want to leave you guys on these two thoughts for the night. Imposter syndrome hits everybody. We all don't think we're enough sometimes, but you are, right? It's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Last month was health awareness for everybody. You and all are enough, each and every one of us. So remember that. And remember, if you need to think about security in this way, sometimes it's the simple things that matter. Until tomorrow, peace, love, peace.